The hall smelled of ozone and pride. Overhead, the artificial sky glowed too bright, a simulation of some distant empire's idea of perfection. Polished chrome ceilings, towering obelisks, banners and alien glyphs, all hummed with power, order, and a smugness only an empire could afford. Seated around the circular tribunal were 92 representatives, some in chitin armor, some in silk, some suspended in jelly-like tanks, but all staring down toward the single, empty platform at the center. The accused was late. The voice of High Arbitrator Grolon, a feathered being with 6 eyes and a legal mind, so vast it was rumored to collapse small suns, clicked through the chamber speakers. Today, we conclude deliberation over the sanctioned cleansing of Sector Deltan 4, a necessary security protocol authorized by the Crown of the Empire to eliminate, how did the humans phrase it, contagion of rebellion. 12 billion lives, rendered null. He smiled the way bureaucrats smile, dry, efficient, and cruel. Murmurs and purrs of agreement drifted from the gallery. The insectoids clicked approval. The gas beings changed hue. A few of the more enlightened casts winced, but said nothing. This was not their blood. The humans hadn't even shown up. That, more than anything, confirmed their extinction. Then a knock. Not a door slam. Not a crash of fury. Just a light, polite, unmistakably human knock, like someone asking permission to enter a room that used to be theirs. The side chamber hissed open. One man stepped through. No fanfare. No guards. No entourage. Just a coffee thermos in one hand and a leather-bound folder in the other. Gray Earth Fleet uniform, 2 buttons undone, a light coating of sand on the boots. He had a kind of stillness about him, the kind you notice only when it's too late. He didn't bow. He didn't explain. He simply walked to the center platform, placed the thermos at his feet, opened the folder, and began. My name is Colton Reyes. Diplomatic observer. Earth Fleet. Not commander. Not general. Not anything you'd recognize, really. I'm just here to deliver a message. The room blinked in confusion. A fish-faced dignitary murmured to his aide, "Is this the full delegation?" Colton smiled. "Yes. It's just me. Humanity's here. And we heard what you did." He pulled out a single sheet of paper. Actual paper. The kind made from trees. A few aliens recoiled. Primitive, they thought. You burned Deltan 4. Children. Cities. Whole civilizations. And you laughed while doing it. That's not the tragedy. That's the warning. An elder from the Olari caste stood. You had been warned. Your colonies harbored traitors. You refused to kneel to the king. Colton didn't look up. We thought you wanted peace. We brought our music, our books, our beer. We even let you name the trade routes. He folded the paper gently, slid it back into the folder. Earth tried being civilized. We really did. There was a pause, brief, like the held breath before a gunshot. But if burning children counts as civilized, maybe it's time we stop. Gasps. Laughter from the Empire's nobles. A wheezing chuckle from Villarreal's personal envoy. A floating orb that pulsed crimson. You threatened the Empire alone, little ape? Colton finally looked up. His gaze wasn't angry. It wasn't proud. It was something much more dangerous. Understanding. No, not alone. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to mark the end of your calendar. He reached into the folder again and pulled out a single photograph. Old. Torn. It showed a family, woman, child, a man in the background holding a wooden horse. No one but Colton seemed to care. This was my niece, he said softly. She died 4 days ago. She liked sunflowers. Never saw one in person. He placed the photo on the tribunal floor. One of the centipede delegates shifted, uncomfortable. This is irrelevant. No, Colton said, voice quiet as falling ash. This is why. A low chime echoed through the chamber. One of the alien senators' wristcoms blinked. Then another. Then 12 more. The High Arbitrator scowled. This is a secure session. Colton didn't move. Check your border systems, he said. One of the diplomats hissed as a hologram projected. Border shields offline. Then another screen. Weapons unresponsive. Another. Dreadnoughts in dry dock missing. The floating orb buzzed. What have you done? We sent a message, Colton said. Same as you did. Just different phrasing. A transmission opened on the central screen. A recorded video. Grainy footage of human soldiers. No insignias, just silence and motion. Infiltrating, disabling, walking through halls filled with sleeping enemy crews. No blood, just precision. One feed showed an alien war commander waking up to find his fleet gone, replaced with a garden. A human child planting seeds in the soil of his throne room. Colton gestured lazily toward the screen. You see, while you were busy watching our death tolls, we were watching your patterns. We didn't build fleets. We built maps. Of your rhythms. Your laziness. Your faith in hierarchy. Another wristcom blinked. Then another. The room filled with the sound of collapsing illusions. You thought you understood humans, Colton said, pacing now, voice still soft. You saw us laugh, dance, get drunk, argue about sandwiches and weather. You mistook chaos for weakness. He turned to face the room. You forgot that we come from predators, not kings. The floating orb surged forward. This is bluster. Theater. You are one. Colton's smile didn't reach his eyes. You ever hear of the Battle of Thermopylae? Silence. Confusion. Didn't think so. Doesn't matter. You're playing the Persians now. The High Arbitrator bellowed. Earth has declared war? No, Colton replied, slowly unscrewing the lid of his thermos. Steam rose. He took a long sip. You declared it years ago. We just didn't RSVP until now. The room exploded into noise, warnings, threats, scrambling aides. Colton ignored it all. He pulled out a small silver disc and set it spinning on the floor. It hummed, projected an old Terran lullaby, gentle as wind chimes in a summer field. The tension in the room curdled into fear. I came here alone, he said, but don't mistake manners for mercy. The disc beeped once. The screens went dark. Every connection severed. Colton picked up the photograph, slid it back into his coat pocket, looked toward the Empire's delegation. You burned a garden and called it pruning. We're just here to return the favor. He walked to the door. The tribunal didn't move. Couldn't. Right before the exit hissed open, he stopped. Oh, and don't bother tracing where we hit first. By the time you figure it out, your capital will be missing. He exited without another word. As the door sealed behind him, a quiet shiver moved through the tribunal floor. The screens blinked once, then displayed only 4 words in a distinctly Terran font. We tried being civilized. Then the lights went out. It started not with a roar, but with silence. Across the charted galaxy, on moons crusted with gold and cities wound through hollow asteroids, the silence came like fog. Invisible, slow, final. No explosions. No banners. Just systems going offline, one by one, as if the stars themselves had forgotten how to shine. The Empire's admirals called it a glitch. Then the mines stopped reporting. The trade convoys vanished mid-transit. Border outposts replied only in loop static. Still, the Empire's voice, cold, confident, honed by centuries of dominion, remained sure. A single Terran delegate had walked into their court, muttered poetic nonsense, and left behind fear like a scent. But now, the scent was blood. The Virgate Sovereign, a proud Empire dreadnought orbiting the agricultural moon Rhythm 3, reported hostiles. Not a fleet, not even a gunship, just humans. They're walking through our hulls, croaked Vice Marshal Scorin, mandibles quivering, in atmosphere suits patched with duct tape. One of them smiled at me. Admiral Kerr of the Thuron species rolled his eye stalks. Humans are feral. Yes, but suicidal? Unlikely. Secure your decks, Scorin. This is not a war, it's pest control. He cut the line. 26 seconds later, the Virgate Sovereign's core destabilized. Not detonated. Not vaporized. Just desynced from its own reality and folded inward. The Empire's remaining sensors recorded a final broadcast. Static. Then the unmistakable sound of Earth's oldest war anthem, Battle Hymn of the Republic, sung off-key. Back on Earth, tucked beneath the roots of a hollowed-out mountain disguised as a tree farm, Colton Reyes slid a weathered chess piece across an old board. The queen scoffed at the crown. His opponent, a stooped woman in her 70s with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, sighed and poured herself tea. "Tell me, Reyes," she said, stirring honey in, "do you plan to checkmate with metaphors or with fire?" Colton shrugged. "Both. Depends on who's watching." She eyed the board. "They're not ready." "They weren't ready when they enslaved Titan," he replied. "Or when they cracked Europa open for sport." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. In the silence, the weight of memory did the talking. Colton stood and walked to the room's far wall, where an enormous screen displayed real-time galactic topography. Whole sectors now pulsed red. Not hostile, not captured, just silent. "They'll look for armies," he muttered. "They won't find any." The woman nodded. "Because we didn't raise soldiers." He turned. "We raise ghosts." Meanwhile, in orbit above the gas giant Teravax, an elite Empire cruiser named Dawn of Irel began broadcasting a distress signal. "We are under siege," the captain, an avian breed with iridescent feathers, squawked into the comm. "Enemy is not using ships. I repeat, enemy is inside the life support systems. We cannot." The feed cut. When the Empire's elite engineering team arrived hours later, they found the ship intact, orbit stable, and the entire crew asleep. Not dead. Asleep. No signs of trauma. Just a small tin box left on the command deck with a note taped in Terran Common. "You're not dreaming, but you should be." The box played Greensleeves on loop. By now, panic had threaded itself into the Empire's joints. The king called for advisors. The advisors fled, and the Senate, which had once cheered the genocide of humans as a strategic pruning, now demanded evacuation protocols. Still, the question lingered. How? How did Earth, with no fleet, no dominion, no galactic title, strike so deep? They forgot Earth had never needed permission. Just time. Across dark space, in the hull of a refitted asteroid called Mother's Grudge, a unit of humans prepared their next move. They weren't Marines. They weren't Navy. They weren't anything you'd find in a government database. They were called the Uncivilized Few, a name earned, not given. "Move quiet, shoot last," said a grizzled man with a jaw tattooed like cracked porcelain. "If they hear you, they think you care." Beside him, a woman in torn combat denim checked her scanner. Second heartbeat signature on level 3. Non-hostile. Could be a janitor. "Janitors talk," someone muttered. She smiled. "Not when they're duct taped to the ceiling." This wasn't war. This was theater. Empire surveillance later found murals scrawled in chalk across destroyed consoles. Human jokes, crude caricatures, and strange riddles like, "What do you call an empire with no spine?" A museum exhibit. Reyes watched the chaos unfold from Earth's command. Just a fieldstone cabin buried under stars and encryption. A junior officer approached. "Sir, Operation Spinal Tap succeeded. The Empire's eastern arm is paralyzed. They can't communicate past subsector Vera." Reyes didn't look up. "And the food drop on Klarnath?" "Delivered." "To both sides?" "Yes, sir. Even their young." Reyes nodded. "Good." The officer hesitated. "Permission to speak freely?" Colton gestured. They killed your family. And you still send food." Reyes turned, slow and solemn. "We're not them. Not yet." Silence again. But across the stars, the silence was cracking. In the Tower Palace of the Empire's capital, the king finally convened his war council. "What do they want?" Varel roared, pounding the throne's crystal arm. "They should be begging. Instead they play music, send boxes, mock us." A royal tactician, long-faced and triple-chinned, whispered, "Maybe that is the message, sire. They're not here to rule, just to humiliate." "Then find me their leaders," he bellowed. "We will hang them in orbit." "They have no leaders," someone whispered. "Only gardeners. They're pruning us." One brave diplomat, a young insectoid from the pacifist caste, spoke up. "Perhaps we should apologize." The room fell into stunned silence. The king's eyes glowed. "You want me to bow to the dirt bloods?" "They are no longer in the dirt," the diplomat said. "They are under our skin." Back on Earth, Reyes closed the file labeled non-combat measures. He opened the next. Phase 2, Cultural Disintegration. Inside, a list of songs, poems, proverbs, and Earth stories translated into 52 alien dialects. Packages were already being sent to enemy planets, not bombs, but ideas. Because humans knew something the Empire had forgotten. Empires fall not when their armies die, but when their stories crumble. At a spaceport on Galactic 7, an alien child opened a crate labeled to the survivors. Inside, food, a blanket, and a single book titled The Velveteen Rabbit, translated in glowing glyphs. The child read the first line, then read it again, and wept. In the stars above, where ships had once roared, only the hum of human operatives, moving like shadows, remained. No insignia, no victory speeches, just one phrase echoing across silent frequencies. Uncivilized, unbroken, unstoppable. Colton Reyes stood beneath the stars that once held hope and now burned with vengeance. The wind stirred the old pines near his cabin. He looked up and whispered to no one, "You made us monsters. You just didn't think we'd be polite about it." Then a screen blinked red. The palace had gone dark. Phase 3 had begun. The palace burned quietly. Not with fire, but with light, the kind of pale, flickering blue that came from overloaded circuits and dying power cores. The throne room of Villarreal the Glorious, once a cathedral of control, now stank of coolant and fear. Holographic banners glitched. Imperial crests hung crooked. Security doors sealed themselves and wouldn't open, or worse, open for no one. The king sat slumped in his throne, breathing raggedly, staring at a wall that no longer showed the galaxy. It showed a single blinking dot. Moving closer. He had stopped demanding updates hours ago. Far beneath the surface, in the old vaults of the palace, once used to store tribute and war trophies, 2 of the emperor's bodyguards stood at attention. Not because they were ordered, but because they were afraid to move. On the far side of the vault, sitting on a crate marked "Do Not Open," ancient Earth debris, a human sharpened a knife with a stone that looked older than the Empire. He didn't speak, didn't look up, just sharpened. One of the guards, a reptilian giant bred for combat and compliance, shifted nervously. "We were told you'd bring demands." The human finally looked up. He had the kind of face that didn't look young or old. Just finished. He smiled. "I don't want your money, or land, or crown." The other guard barked, "Then why are you here?" The smile grew colder. "To deliver a message." The guard stiffened, weapons at ready. But the human just stood, sheathed the blade, and walked past them like they didn't matter. Because they didn't. Above, on the palace's upper terrace, Colton Reyes lit a match. He didn't smoke. He just liked the act of fire in hand. The terrace overlooked the sprawl of the capital. Towers once gold, now gray. Skies once blue, now choked with black streams of emergency evacuation ships. The Empire wasn't falling. It was crumbling. Not because someone kicked it. Because someone whispered, "You don't deserve to stand." Colton turned as another operative joined him. A woman with dark eyes, burned scars on her knuckles, and a datapad under her arm. "Phase 3 is complete," she said, her voice low. "Cultural files have replaced state archives. Half the Empire thinks Villarreal died 5 days ago. The other half thinks he never existed." "Perfect," Reyes said. "They're asking what to believe." He looked at the rising sun, read his warning. "And that, my friend, is how you end a religion." She hesitated. "What about the children?" Reyes took a long breath. "We leave food, clean water, stories. They can choose who they become." She stared at him. "We weren't trained to do this." "No," Reyes agreed. "We were trained to win." At the heart of the Empire, a young alien girl crept through the broken corridors of the Grand Library. Her name was Aless, and she had once believed in the glory of the Empire, until the day the screens stopped playing music and started playing Earth poetry. Now she wandered the stacks, scavenging power cells and warmth, whispering stanzas of the road not taken as if it were a hymn. She found a corner with an emergency lamp still glowing. Next to it sat a human soldier, helmet off, cradling a wound on his side. She froze. He didn't move. "Are you here to kill us?" she asked. He shook his head. Just watching the end of your story. It's a good one. But we were the greatest, she said. He smiled sadly. And we let you believe that. She frowned. Why? Because it's easier to break a throne when no one's guarding it. She sat beside him. Are you a monster? He tilted his head. Not yet. Atop the ruins of the old war tower, Reyes stood alone. He opened a small metal case. Inside, a necklace. His niece's. She had sent it to him weeks before her colony burned. A child's charm. A sun carved from recycled plastic. Still smelled like strawberries. He held it in his palm and whispered, "They made us this." From his earpiece, a voice crackled. "Sir, the king's making a broadcast." Reyes nodded. "Let it play." On every still-functioning screen, the pale, shaking face of VRL appeared. His once proud brow was now streaked with grime. The golden collar had been torn from his neck. I speak now not as a king, but as one who sees the abyss. Earth, humanity, we misunderstood you. We mocked your weakness. But it was restraint. He coughed. You sent not armies, but ideas. You didn't kill us with lasers. You made us irrelevant. And I ask not for mercy, but for meaning. Why? The broadcast cut. Back in the palace corridor, Reyes leaned against a support beam and thought for a long moment before he answered into the silence. Because we wanted peace. You wanted proof we could destroy you. He looked down the hallway where one of his agents stood. Now you have it. The Empire's High Chancellor, a shadowy bureaucrat known only as Dra, tried to escape. Slipped into a cruiser bound for a neutral sector. The ship vanished in transit. Later, a single transmission echoed through open frequencies. A recording of the Chancellor begging for negotiation, while a human voice calmly listed every atrocity he signed off on: date, time, number of victims. The list took 14 hours to read. No threats. No yelling. Just facts. Cold, elegant vengeance. Even the most hardened mercenary empires stopped taking the Empire's contracts. Too dangerous. Too visible. Too human. On the outer colonies, graffiti began to appear. Not threats. Just 3 words. We remember everything. And a picture of a sunflower. Back on Earth, Reyes sat at the edge of the old war museum, where the lawn grew wild and no signs kept people out. A child approached. Human. Brown eyes. Dirt under his nails. Sir, what's a genocide? Reyes looked down. It's when someone tries to end a story before the last chapter. The boy blinked. Did we stop it? Reyes nodded. We wrote the rest ourselves. He stood, bones aching, and walked toward the silent monument in the center of the field. No names. No flags. Just a bench. A place to remember. His comm buzzed. A new message. From deep space. A survivor. A prince, hiding in the ruins of a moon that once hosted a gala for VRL's birthday. Reyes opened the message. It said, "We'll never forget what you did." He replied with 3 words. "We hope not." Then he stood, eyes cast up to the sky, and smiled, not with joy, but with something harder. Something earned. Behind him, the museum lights flickered. Phase 4 awaited. The stars over the Empire's throne world used to sing. That was the word imperial poets used. Sing. Luminous, orderly, proud. A lattice of planetary defenses shimmered in orbit, backed by battle satellites shaped like obsidian fangs. The skies had been groomed to awe. The world itself, Aurelian Prime, was a miracle of engineering and ruthlessness. Streets etched with memory tiles that lit beneath each footstep. Spires of crystal that reached the mesosphere. A palace larger than continents, visible from orbit, carved to resemble the Empire's crown. Now it was quiet. Not the quiet of peace. The quiet of aftermath. The lattice was gone. Satellites offline or repurposed. Spires blackened, toppled. And in the middle of it all, walking across the garden that had once held the king's private arboretum, was a man in a gray coat, hands behind his back, pausing to touch a charred sunflower that shouldn't have been growing at all. Colton Reyes stood among ghosts. The wind stirred dust around his boots. Behind him, a human squad secured the perimeter. No barking orders, no flags raised. They weren't here to conquer, only to bear witness. Each footstep was deliberate, like someone moving through the pages of a sacred book. He looked up at the throne tower, now half collapsed, its once glorious crown split down the middle. A fitting metaphor, if anyone still had time for poetry. Beside him, the scarred woman with the datapad, Agent Kara Havith, stepped lightly through broken mosaic tiles, reading what little information remained. "No more broadcasts from inside," she said. "The last of the royal guards surrendered. They weren't expecting us to come through the water system." Reyes didn't smile. "They never expect the garden to bite." A pause. Then Kira said, "We found the vault. His nursery." Reyes turned slightly. "The king's." She nodded. "Kept it preserved. Same temperature, same air, same music on loop." He said nothing. "Would you like to see it?" "No." She nodded once and didn't ask again. The central plaza had once been the jewel of the galaxy. Every inch curated. Fountains flowed with biofiltered light water, engineered to refract sunlight into imperial crests. Now, puddles of ash reflected only memory. At the center, a tree. It wasn't native to Aurelian Prime. It had been imported, carefully grown from Earth seed stock decades ago, selected by the king himself as a gift to display the Empire's generosity. An earth oak. It stood alone. And it was alive. Reyes approached it slowly. His boots crunched over broken stone and something more brittle, bones, perhaps. The wind hummed through its leaves, though no wind should have been blowing. Someone had hung a child's drawing from one of its branches. Crayon and paper slightly scorched, fluttering in the breeze. A simple image, a flower, a hand, a sun. He studied it for a long moment, then tucked it into his coat pocket, careful not to crease it. A voice behind him. "I wondered when you'd come." Reyes turned. VRL stood alone, or what remained of him. The once mighty king wore robes now burned and frayed, one sleeve missing, the imperial sigil on his chest blackened beyond recognition. He held no weapon. His face was pale, sunken, but his eyes still burned. "I suppose this is where you deliver speech?" the king asked, lips curled in something between defiance and exhaustion. "One final poetic insult before you have me executed?" Reyes said nothing. "I remember when you came to court," VRL said, stepping closer. "With your coffee, your paper files, your smug little smile. We laughed at you." Reyes looked past him toward the palace archways, where vines had grown through cracks in the stone. "You laughed," he said quietly, "while we buried. Because we knew what you were, what you are." VRL spat. "A people of ghosts and grudges. You call this justice? No, this is gardening with fire." Reyes stepped toward him. "You burned the garden first. I cultivated order. You pruned innocence. I ruled," the king snapped. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," Reyes said. "It makes us worse." Silence crackled between them, thick as the smoke rising from distant domes. A scream echoed faintly. Somewhere inside the palace, someone had found another ghost. VRL lowered his voice. "Then why not become what we claimed you were? Why not take it all? The throne. The empire. You have the power." Reyes looked down at the soil beneath the tree. There, between roots, a single fresh sprout pushed through the ash. "Because the point was never to replace you," he said. "The point was to make sure no one ever believes in you again." The king swayed. "So what? You kill me? You walk away." Reyes stepped closer. "We leave you." VRL blinked. "No prison. You already live in one. I deserve a trial. You had one. When you broadcast our family's burning." The king said nothing for a long while. "Then they'll remember me." Reyes nodded. "Yes, but not the way you hope." Behind them, a human child approached, perhaps 9 years old, wearing patched overalls and carrying a datapad twice his size. "Sir," the boy asked, "the fleet's ready." Reyes turned, eyes softening. "Did you finish your report?" "Yes, sir." "Then read it." The boy stood straight, cleared his throat. Summary of Operation Gardenfall. Objective: complete disarmament of Empire infrastructure without mass extinction. Status: achieved. Royal family neutralized. Capital captured. Civilian system stabilized. Cultural narrative rewritten. The boy looked up. Was that right? Reyes nodded. Exactly right. The boy hesitated. What happens now? We plan something better. Kira stepped forward, her voice low. Broadcast channel open. Reyes turned back to VRL. The king said nothing. His shoulders slumped. His gaze fell to the earth. Reyes tapped his comm. To every planet, every station, every outpost that had ever bowed to the Empire. The human signal went live. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. My name is Colton Reyes. I am not a king. I am not your enemy. I'm just someone who survived long enough to deliver a message. He paused. You burned our children. So we return fire. Not to conquer. Not to rule. But to remind you what silence can become when it's full of memory. He stepped back, letting the signal linger in silence. Then he ended the transmission. Kira exhaled slowly. It's done. No, Reyes whispered. It's begun. In the ashes of the garden, the earth oak stood tall. Behind it, the palace crumbled. And from above, descending through the thinning clouds, came a fleet not of warships, but carriers. Loaded not with weapons, but with seeds. The final operation. They called it Greenfall. Terraformers, engineers, poets, doctors. Not to build a new empire, but to ensure no one ever needed one again. And as Reyes walked toward the landing pad, sun finally breaking through the smoke for the first time in years, he paused. The king remained under the tree, kneeling now, head bowed, not in surrender, but in something harder to name. Reflection. Perhaps even mourning. Reyes didn't look back. He didn't need to. Behind him, a new garden had begun.